All right. Well, welcome everybody. This is Dr. A, and this is the Conscious Forum. Very excited. Moving into February, the second month in a revolution around the sun, which takes a year, and we'll give it an opportunity for everybody to settle in here, and then we'll get going in about 30 seconds. So, hope all of you are enjoying. I don't know what the weather's like up north, and weather down here in the south is just gorgeous. I'd forgotten the weather had been so bad. I'd forgotten what Florida was like anymore, with our climate change. So anyway, today we're basically going to be talking about something which is near and dear to me and something that I've been teaching and working on myself now for over 10 years. And that is going to the mental gym. It's actually spending time working on mental gymnastics. And I mean that from a very positive way, and learning to explore, kind of putting on our lab coat and exploring ourself, our mind. Because if we're not in control and we're just letting the world happen to us in this day and age with AI, the media, completely connectivity all over, you're seeing everything that's happening, we're going to be in big trouble. And so it's really important. And today we're going to talk about something that I think is really, really something you can use and start doing daily to help yourself. So just to kind of refresh everybody's memory, consciousness basically refers to the state of being aware of our surroundings, aware of what's around us, aware of our thoughts, what's going on in here, and our feelings, or mostly our emotions, is how we think about them. And all three are critical. Awareness of our surroundings, obviously, a lot of times we're on this, and it's amazing. I got on planes or cars or just in restaurants. I mean, it seems like nobody's actually aware of their surroundings, and they're glued to their phone. So they're in the digital, kind of have the digital leash. And so being aware, one of the things I love is I love the water. So I made my house all wide open so I can see outside and stay very connected. And that's connection is really important. I've written a new book which will be released in a couple weeks. It's going to be released to our coaches on this Friday. And I talk a lot about that, about being conscious, being aware. It's so critical. It's important for our sleep that we wake up in the morning and we get outside. We're an indoor species, but getting out in nature, in the sun is so critical. So consciousness really is being aware of these states, not being so connected inside or on distracted, so that we start to understand those in more detail. So this again is a forum. It's a place, meeting, or medium where ideas and views on a particular issue can be exchanged. Today, I'm going to be talking about some exercise you can do in the mental gym, and then we'll open it up. And so, as you're listening to what I'm talking about, jot down notes, and then Rachel, you can contact Rachel if you would love to share something. Or if you have any questions for me, because I find the interactive part is what really allows me to continue to grow, at being able to help people with this, kind of guide them and coach them to increasing their vertical development or consciousness. And then I learned so much from it. So please, if you have any questions, anything comes up, anything you're working on, then we want to talk about that. So today we're going to talk, and you see I've kind of shaken up the slides a little bit here to get a little more energy into it. Are you going to the mental gym? And I'm a fellow human, and that's the title I put down here because one of the things, the beauty of the things I'm talking about, every single one of you can do these things. They're not that difficult. They're just not usually what we do. We kind of went on an automatic programming, and we'll talk about that in a minute, about our ego and our personal mind that kind of runs the show. So most of the time we're really in an unconscious state or a subconscious state where we're not really fully connected to what's happening in our mind, and even in our life. So we're going to talk about that today. So if you could choose being happy, would you? And you may think, well, yeah, of course I want to be happy. But our actions, the things we do, the things we don't do, not working on the mental gym, leads to considerable suffering. And suffering, as I'll end this presentation, is optional. Life happens. We have good things, bad things. We have people that we care about die, get sick. We have accidents. We have, loss of all kinds of things. We have adversity. And that's part of life. I mean, if you look at nature, most animals don't make it very long because they end up getting eaten by somebody else, or there's a drought. Well, we've technologically advanced ourselves, so we protected ourselves against much of the natural threats. What we haven't protected are the perceived threats, our egos, our ability to negotiate with other people, our ability to be in control where we're not letting everything bother us. And so that's what I mean by if you could choose being happy, because happiness is a chosen state. It's something you choose to be. And I'm not saying, things don't happen to us. They do. But how you choose to respond to them determines the outcome. So this is something that is really interesting. You've probably seen old books and probably paintings from the Renaissance in different areas, and people like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo and a whole bunch of scholars. They would usually have a skull like the one that they're being held there, and I think actually back then it was a real human skull. I don't know where they got them, but they would be on their desk. And it was what the Italians call in Latin, memento mori. And it means that moment, perceiving that moment of death. And the importance of that is that when we're aware that we're only here as a speck, basically, for a very short period of time, we're like mist that evaporates and we're here and then we're gone. Hopefully, with learning the things that I teach, you can live your full long health span and not so much lifespan, but health span where you're healthy, for a long time. And with technology today and the devices we have, there's no reason why we can't live to our late 80s, 90s, and possibly I know some people that are, over 100 that are still have a quality health span. So important part of that is being curious, opening, want to grow, and recognize that we're only here for a short period of time. And we should appreciate and not take for granted anything that happens. Looking out at the sky, we see a beautiful sunset and it startles you into the beauty. But we should be doing that every day. That's one of the things that will help us be happy. So basically, how would you rate your last year, your last 12 months of life? I mean, was it spectacular? Were you stressed out to the max? Were you unhealthy? Were you sick? What were you feeling? Were you suffering a lot mentally? And ask yourself, because, who was in charge during that period? What happened to you in the last year? Because the only three things really that we have control over are our perceptions, how we look at reality, our choices, the choices we make, and our behaviors, how we act and how we act day in and day out. For most, basically, their ego is in charge. And I mean by that, your personal mind. You've been creating a script since you were very little about the way the world is and how it functions and how to keep yourself safe. And your ego kind of runs the show. When we're in that state, basically, it's very hard to be healthy all the time because you've assigned your ego a responsibility that is impossible. Make everyone like me and make my life just as I want it. So, in other words, we want to make the outside world conform to what we want. And if we have that attitude and we have our ego there to protect us, we're going to be stressed out all the time because very, very rarely is the world the way we want it to. The world is going on in its own momentum, in its own way, and we're just one little part of that. So it's really important for us to understand that. So there's two very distinct ways of living, and living being influenced by the outside world and being weighed down by all the things that are happening, or being influenced by the inside world and lifting yourself up to truly be happy and really enjoy it. I'm not talking about blind optimism. I'm talking about taking pretty much everything and appreciating the obstacles that come on, knowing that they're the way that help teach us and be open and curious and want to grow versus being closed, defensive, and want to be right. So, am I okay? And the bottom line is, most of us, the answer to that is no, I'm not okay. If I have the new house, if I get the new job, if I get the corner window in my office, if I make another $3,000 a year or a month, whatever it is, then I'll be okay. And the reality is, you're not going to be, because the same stuff that's inside, the energy that's in there that's stored from our past, keeps getting triggered and keeps weighing us down and creating stress in our life. So, how do you get there? Well, basically, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Going to the mental gym. So, choosing joy over the need to be right basically is the idea of taming of your ego. Our ego needs to be right. in any situation, in any conversation, it's important for us to be right. And our ego wants to make sure, because if we're not right, then basically it makes us look bad. And so we've created this whole dialogue, this voice, this chatter, this taming of the shrew, so to speak, in our mind, that we want things to be the way we want them to be. And when they are, great. When they're not, they're not. And so we're not going to be, they're not going to be great most of the time because we're not in charge of the world. We are simply in charge of our perceptions, our choices, and our behaviors. So, do you really want to be happy? It really comes down to that. Do you really want to be happy? And I can tell you that I've always been relatively happy. I've gone through the trials and tribulations just like everybody on here. Had some bad things happen, but I've chosen always to look at them as learning experiences and to grow from them. And I would say that majority of the time, and I'm just moving into my new house, and you know how moving is. Some marriages end by building a new house or moving. I've been relatively happy. Some things that have not gone the way I'd like them to. But as a whole, I'm very excited and very happy, and I choose to be. So becoming conscious, becoming aware, and being fully alive requires daily work. And so we're going to spend the last part of this before we open it up for questions talking about the mental gym. So just to refresh, you can see we have three brains. We basically have the lizard, the automatic brain that just reacts, the Labrador brain, which is our limbic area, which responds to emotions. And then we have our human thinking brain, which is the rational part, the part here where we make choices based on what's in our best interest and actually prolong out in time rather than making decisions instantaneously all the time. And I've given you the technology and for several years now of stop, challenge, and choose. So what we want to do rather than just have something happen and we respond and go off someone says something to you and you get pissed off at it. Somebody cuts in front of you in traffic and it ruins your day. That's where we want to intervene and stop, challenge why we're feeling it, and re-engage this and make the choices that support long-term health, long-term well-being, long-term relationships, and all of that basically starts with three modalities that you can use when you stop, challenge, and choose. So I'm going to learn and master the goal of leaving suffering behind with these three modalities. The first one, switching thoughts. This is the easiest one. This is the one where replace your automatic negative thoughts, things when something gets you upset, with consciously, willfully generating positive thoughts. So the one I like to use because we deal with it all the time. I was just dealing with it yesterday afternoon. I had a meeting to go to. I did not plan right, and I was running a little behind. I'm on A1A. The speed limit is 45, and the senior citizen in front of me with a double line was going maybe 30, maybe 28 or something. I think it was 28. I couldn't go, and I basically thought, okay, I'm late for this. I'm not. I'm late. I'll be there, but it's a little stressful. Rather than getting anxious and stressful, I said, okay, I can't go. I can't pass lots of traffic. I'm going to go ahead and think about the meeting I'm going to be in and how I'm going to respond to that meeting. And so I switched it up, thought about the positive being with some people I haven't seen in a while, and switched it from a negative to a positive. And you can do that instantaneously. So when something, you spilled milk, then say, okay, great opportunity. Let me clean the floor and let me just clean the floor right around here or anything. It doesn't matter what it is, but it's so easy to do. Take something that's negative and turn it into something that's positive, something else. So switch your thought. That's the easiest thing you can do that turns off that cognitive emotive loop that's got you upset and then you get pissed and then it starts cycling. And then for the rest of the time in the car, you're anxious, you're more anxious, you maybe do a bonehead thing and cut across the double line and onto oncoming traffic or gut up on the guy's bumper or all ridiculous things that aren't safe. And the cost benefit ratio certainly isn't worth it. So that's the easiest one. Second one is a mantra, and this is also relatively easy. Basically, when we call it our monkey mind or our voice in our head is just cranking along. Basically, this is a great one to do in the evening too, with it's like a type of meditative thing you can do. So when your mind's really racing like that, and you've got this flight of ideas, and it's all just going crazy. Think of a mantra. Think of training your mind to repeat a single word or a phrase over and over. until it's stuck in your mind just like a song. So you can take I have three or four. Basically, I love the wind. I live on the ocean, and I'm a sailor, and I love the wind is one of the ones I use sometimes, and I love the wind. And I'll say it multiple times. And when you say it, start focusing, and you say it in your mind. You don't say it out loud. You say it in your mind, and as you do, all of a sudden your synaptic endings are now getting in resonance, and with that harmony, it can become something that you just enjoy. It could be part of your faith. It could be saying, "I love God," or whatever works for you. It doesn't matter what it is, but basically it helps get in resonance, and it shuts down all that. It's a good one before you go to sleep. People talk about counting sheep, but having a mantra that you just continue to say, and when your mind's trying to take over and thoughts are trying to get going, just come right back to it. And then the third one, the one that is the most difficult and the one that becomes the bread and butter over time, is when you react, when you start to feel that icky sauce. You're actually something's going on, and you look and something triggers you. It could be from your past, it could be a thought, a relationship, it could be anything. And when we comes up and we feel it, normally what we have a tendency to do is we resist it. We say, no, I don't want to think about that, and we bury it back in. We don't let it come up, or we basically repress it, or we project it on someone else and say, oh God, look how stupid they look, rather than admit that we're actually thinking, projecting something about ourselves that we're feeling. But when you actually feel it, emotions take about 90 seconds. They don't take that long. And each time, and I'd start with little things, little thoughts, energy thoughts that have been buried in there, that are negative energy, and let them come up. And yeah, it's going to hurt when it comes up, but you're going to get it out of there, and then just let it come up and release. And I can tell you, there are so many things. I just finished writing this book, and all the deadlines, all the delays, all the things that had to be redone. I handled it and actually very much enjoyed the process. And it's the first time I would say the process. I mean, I love writing and I love helping people, but this process was relatively painless because I just didn't let that energy, those negative triggers, get in the way. I'd look at them and saying, whoa, here's an area to actually make it better. I'd use the combination of changing a negative to a positive and then say, well, let me rework this. Let me make sure this works better. Give me feedback. Tell me what could be better. It's not that I want to be right. So my ego has become much more in control, and I just kind of relax into that, and then you release it. So this is the one that takes, and you don't start off with major trauma like dad or mom issues or issues as a kid or self-worth. You don't start with the huge stuff first. You start with the easy stuff, like being in the car, like getting cut off in traffic, like somebody saying something to you, and basically like the weather not being a good one. The weather, right? The weather when I moved in last was horrendous here. I mean, it was 40 knot winds. It was raining. It was cold. It was in the 40s. Now I know if you lived up north, it was much colder, but it wasn't great. And so instead, we said, well, let's make sure we have the tarps. Let's do this, and actually we'll stay inside all day and just work because you don't want to be outside. So it's actually events are going to happen. It's basically how you respond to them that determines the outcome. So you can reframe everything, and reframing is everything. So anything that happens, you can reframe it and put it in position, just like the obstacle is the way, where you know what, I'm going to learn from this and I'm going to grow from this. And I can tell you that you'll feel your stress level come down, your activity go down, and you will start to enjoy your life much more. So pain is part of life. It's going to happen to us. Suffering is optional. So let's open it up for Q&A, Rach.
All right, first up we have Eric. Eric, can you come on camera?
Hey,
Yep.
Eric.
Hi, how are you,
I'm
Dr. A?
fantastic. Fantastic.
So I'm looking for a way of dealing with self-sabotage. So I've been on this health journey for over 6 years. I'm in probably the best health I've been in the last 4 decades. And but I seem to take 5 steps forward and 1 step back. And I'm improving in my health, but I can't seem to stop that self-sabotage. I've been able to get the moments shorter and where I right back to compass north, but I'm really trying to figure out some things I can work on to get to the root of that problem, I guess.
Okay. All
If that
right.
makes
So,
sense.
yeah,
Some
no, it
actual
makes perfectly sense. And so you're still in an oscillating structure. So my dear friend Robert Fritz, are you familiar with him?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, he talks about the creative process, and there's two types of motivation. There's the motivation that's driven by trying to get away from things you don't want. Okay. And then there's the motivation driving towards things you do want. The motivation getting away from things you don't want is self-limiting because, in the great example, and the easiest one is with weight, is if you, let's say, you see something that's it just takes you to the point where you're at your breaking point. Like, let's say you see a picture of yourself on vacation with your belly hanging out, or your doctor says, hey, you've got pre-diabetes, or it doesn't matter what it is, but it's something where you all of a sudden emotionally feel like, oh, I got to do something about it. And so what you do is you say, I'm going on a diet, right? So you go on a diet and you lose 10 pounds, you look better, or your pre-diabetes is less. And so then you have less pressure and then you stop doing it. So that type of motivation doesn't last. It's oscillating. So what happens is as you go further, so this is where you want to go, and this is where you were. It's like having two rubber bands around your waist on both ends. As you pull more towards this one gets tighter, and it's going to eventually make you have you come back. Okay. The other thing is to keep in mind is there's usually when we're working on our health or working on our fitness, and then we slip back, like you said, three steps forward, one step back, is that there's some reason why you want to go back to that old behavior. It satisfies something inside of you. So that's going to require you to put on your goggles. First thing I do is I focus on the first part, which is the creative process. Look at what your desired outcome is. What do you want in terms of your health? And I would take it and build what we call structural tension. And the habits of health is designed around that, is that what's your desired outcome? And look at all the key areas. I would look at all the key areas in the habits of health. I would look at, all the macro habits, right? I would look and say, okay, terms of what, and actually in the new prescription for life coming out, I do advanced stuff on that. So that'll be great for you too to have. And basically, my body composition. Okay. So do you measure your body composition? Do you know what it is?
Yes.
Okay. And is your body composition improved?
A lot.
Okay. So now what is the end point of what that looks like? So complete health, you're talking about complete health and health and well-being, because I always combine the two. It's your physical health, which is your body, but it's also your mental health, right? And that's why I do the conscious forum, is because basically I know this, your mental health, your ability to cognitively lead yourself forward and arrange your life around what matters most is all in here. Your body is just going along for the ride. Now, there's many reasons, and in the new prescription for life, I really talk a lot about the stuff we're learning about metabolic health. We're learning more and more about insulin and insulin resistance, and how probably half the world has insulin resistance, about 75% of Americans, because of our diet, our lack of activity, our stress levels, and the inflammation we have. They're all creating insulin resistance. So look and see, what would those things look like if they're ideal? What would my body composition look like ideal? What would be my ideal weight? How do I get my BMI under 25? How do I get my V.O2? So my exercise, my aerobic fitness. How do I get my strength, my grip strength, my ability to lift weight so that I'm not just maintaining my muscles, but I'm strong? How do I get my sleep to 8 hours a day? And I would put each one of those into a category, and then across those, look and assess yourself and look where you are in relationship to those. And that way you're creating current reality where you are now in that particular area, and then basically where I want to go to. Because as long as you're looking here, this is where I want to go to, and this is where I am, that creates structural tension, and that'll keep you moving forward. And as soon as you do that, the concepts that are down here, right, will start being minimized because you're focusing on where you want to go and you're actually cutting the rubber bands down here and you'll move towards you want. Does it make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and the
And
and the one to start with is your mental one. So the bottom line is, since most of it is mental, go to use those three exercises that I just gave you and start using them every day because I know you're not.
Mhm.
Okay, because nobody is, and because our ego always wants to say, "Oh, you got this figured out," or my dear friend, basically. Oh God, Jim Defner, he wrote a book with Diana Chapman, who are both dear friends, 15 Commitments, right? Of Conscious Leader. I know you've read that.
Yep.
And everybody says, yeah, I've read that. I know that. No, it's not knowing it, it's being it. There's a
Yes.
big difference between no, oh, I know I'm going to go below the line here. No, that's not how it works. You can't qualify that. You have to become it. And we all go below the line because we're humans. And that's why I started off. I'm a fellow human. I do the same stuff. This is not me on a soapbox talking about it. It's something that happens every day in our lives. And the more we work on it, the happier we'll be, the more content. And by the way, your psychological flexibility determines more than anything your emotional management, and your emotional management determines your organic health. Convinced of that beyond everything else. So you can go to your doctor to the repair shop, think you're a car, or you can actually start doing those exercises and change everything. Cool?
Thank you, Dr. A.
Welcome. You're so welcome. Go get them, Eric. All
All
right.
right. Next up, we have Ray. Ray, can you come on camera? There you are.
Yes.
Hey,
Hey,
Ray.
Dr. A. Thank you so much for all of this. And one of my question is, so since getting healthier, I can recognize that some of my habits are causing fluctuation in my weight. Is there a specific like weight fluctuation that is still considered healthy for someone to have?
So I'm going to be surgical with you here. Okay. No. Bottom line is the only weight fluctuation you want to lower your fat body composition down to a healthy weight, a BMI of 25. And the only way you want your weight going up is because now you're building more muscle. Period. Weight oscillation is not healthy. That's why I wrote this book, by the way, The Prescription for Life, is because we have 10 million people and 30 million on the way to taking these shots, and they are going to destroy their health if they don't have a strategy, they don't have the tactics, and they don't have a plan. So I specifically wrote Prescription for Life, going through the 5 areas. Number one, basically the world hasn't changed. The world is more toxic than it's ever been. Between the food, the processed food, sedentary lifestyle, stress, all the different parameters. Second is the weight loss revolution is here. On Revolution, we now have drugs that actually can help you lose weight. The third is, but are and they're helpful for some people, especially people that are addicted to highly processed food. Third, are the drugs right for you? Because you don't need them unless you do need them. If you do need them, great. You're going to decide after we go through the pros and cons of their benefits, their risks, and then basically you'll decide whether you want to use it. If you want to use them, then great. Prescription for Now is part 4. You'll then take them during a period knowing that they have a half-life of about a year. And so during that year, we're going to start teaching you the fundamentals of key behavioral changes. If you don't want to use them, then basically go right to Prescription for Life, which is part 5, which is half the book, which goes over all the key areas to stay healthy. And then the last part is your future optimal health, where I'm keeping you apprised of all the other things with technology hacks and things we can do to help maximize our health and our well-being. So, but the answer is the only fluctuation you want to now, a couple pounds because of water weight, of course. But I'm talking about you want to reach a healthy weight because everything gets better. And by the way, just talking about it, the idea of fat prejudice and people having fat stigma around being overweight or obese needs to go away. But the response to that was healthy at any weight, and there is no such thing. If we're overweight, even if we don't have metabolic syndrome yet, within the next 5 to 10 years, we will, because if we're overweight, it says that our insulin resistance is already occurring. And so eventually you will become unhealthy. So the goal should be, no matter what, to be nice to people that are struggling, but at the same time, encourage people to take personal responsibility and get down to a healthy weight. Cool?
Great. Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Cool. Okay. Who else we got?
Next up, we have Kelly. Kelly, can you come on camera? Here you are.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Dr. A. How are you?
I am fantastic.
I do have to say this is the best you've ever looked. And
Well,
I've
thank
known you
you.
for a long time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you know what? And I feel that way. I feel great. I mean, I can't, I just can't, I'm not asking people to do something that I'm not doing myself. And I just can tell you that, the beauty that you have when you let kind of your ego, you kind of say, you know what, you're on the sidelines, you're out of the game, right? And you start laughing at all the stuff that used to bother you. You know, when people say something, or someone says something and acts like, you might have before thought, well, they're making me look stupid. I don't care. It's kind of like in the movie The Fugitive, when they were when what's his name? I forgot his name right now. Was bringing in Harrison Ford, and he goes, "I didn't kill my wife." And the guy, the marshal says, "I don't care. That's not his job. His job wasn't to know whether he was guilty, and his job was to bring him in." Same thing with our ego. Our ego's job, we need to fire our ego, set it on the sidelines, awaken ourselves, do those three exercises, and start really enjoying our life. So thank you. Enough about me. Let's talk about you.
Yeah. So last year I had lots of family drama, like affecting me emotionally, mentally, financially, physically. And I've tried to overcome it, but I just can't seem to do that. And it's carried into this year, and January has not been fun. And I need to break that cycle. So I need a little bit of advice on some things I can do to not let it bother me when it's your family.
Yeah. Well, they're human beings. They're fellow human beings. And just in the evolution, one of the things that when I work with or moms or dads, you're talking about little kids and they're frustrated, is that even the little person, even though they're little, they're basically a fellow human, right? And we need to teach. We can't control them. Now, we have to guide them, keep them safe, but we need to set some boundaries and not helicopter over them, right? And the reason why I'm saying that, we have a tendency with our family to treat our family different than we do anybody else. It's almost like, well, you're stuck with me, right? And so that they will do things to you, and you will do things to them that you wouldn't to your friends, right?
Mhm.
And so you have to look and ask yourself, okay, in this situation, because obviously you're on here, you're learning, and you said the word try, and actually someone else said it too. Try, there's no such thing as try. Try is the most demoralizing word in the English language. You either do or you don't. In Star Wars, Yoda, Luke tried to lift the spacecraft, and he goes, "I'm trying," and Yoda goes, "You either do or you don't. There's no try. Try means, oh, I'm trying." Doesn't work. So you have to sit down. Okay, what are the guidelines? What are the things that are happening? Why am I getting upset about it? And then look and say, what is reality? What do I have control over? And what don't I have control over? So first of all, know this: you have control over only one person, and who is that?
Myself.
Yeah. You have full control. And when you take back the locus of control, when you, in other words, rather than look outside and say, my family's upsetting me, my family's doing this, when you take the locus of control and say that I'm the only one that can upset me, no one else can upset me, I can only upset me, that's where it starts. And bottom line is, not saying you're not human and not saying you don't get frustrated, and depending on what the situation is, and we don't need to get into that, but whether it's got you pissed off or got you sad or if it got you frustrated, it's not about you. It's their choices of what they're doing. And if they're not open and curious and want to grow, if they're ensconced, they're in their egos, they're not going to change. And you can't make, no matter how many of these conscious forums you come on, you can't make them do something they're not willing to do. All you can do is look for edges for where there's potentially a teachable moment. That's all you can do. But when you leave that situation, like, and there's frustration. I have two daughters. They are diametrically opposed. I mean, And we were together, and I was writing this book, so we were together up skiing. And I had to have my headset on writing most of the time. And I could just, I was watching their behavior without listening to them, right? Because they were in the room. And it just amazes me how different they are. And both of them, one of them is, I'm not going to throw any of them under the bus. One of them is more receptive than the other one. Although the other one is now getting more receptive. You know why? Because they're looking and hearing me like they heard me do the forum. They know that I'm helping adults. They know that I really have their best interests and I'm not picking on them. And so they're starting to soften, one of them more than the other, but even the one that was more bigger ego, right, is softening now and actually listens to me. And actually, I'm surprised when we'll have a conversation, she won't get defensive. I used to say, she used to goes, I know, Dad, stop, challenge, and choose, and that was the end of the conversation because she was not interested. So what I'm saying, your family's been with you a long time. They've known you their whole life. You've known them your whole life. And so there's a lot of liberties we take with our language, with our body types, the behavior we do. And you just don't have any control over that. So come to peace with that. And then when something frustrating happens, stop, challenge, and choose an outcome and look for the windows. Like we always say, you can't make a horse drink, but you can salt the oats, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Thank you so much.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate it.
You are welcome. Cool. All right, Rachel, who we got?
Next up, we have Larry. Larry, can you come on camera? Larry, are you there? There he is.
Here's Larry.
Hey, good morning. Thank you, Dr. A. Appreciate everything you have to say. One thing I find for myself that I've been dealing with a lot is when it comes to the overthinking and the ruminations, is pinpointing where the source is coming from. And I find that I deal with a lot of physical effects that come along with that as well, sweating, shakes, things like that. So I can turn my brain around, but how do I help with these physical effects that come along as well?
Okay. Yeah. No, that's a great question. And thanks, Larry, for sharing. So that is what we refer to when we say cognitive emotive loop. Cognitive is the thought process that's going on, and the emotional part is the loop, right? So your thoughts create emotions. And your emotions basically are energy in motion. Your limbic area in your brain, that area I was talking, the Labrador brain, is designed to protect you. And evolutionary was one of the developments so that when you were, 100,000 years ago, if you were walking down a trail and there was a snake, bottom line is you jumped, you felt a surge of fear, and you jumped to the side before you even thought about it. Because if you didn't have that area and you thought about it, you'd say, "Oh, look at the pretty variegations on the scales, and oh, look at that interesting thing in the back going like that," and you'd be dead. So that's how you're wired. You're wired to do that. And when you have a thought that's disturbing to you, it's going to create the emotions. So the emotions are the release of epinephrine, norepinephrine, cortisol. Those were normally designed to get you the heck out of the way, have you freeze, have you fall, play dead, or have you fight. And so that you're sensing the icky sauce that comes because you're having some type of thoughts in here that are disturbing to you. So the way, and once that loop's going and you're feeling that, it's very hard to stop it. So what you need to do is get better at sensing it. So you're at a conscious state. We're sitting here, you and I are talking, you're listening to me. And then let's say over to the side, I don't know, somebody does something and you look and you see it. And all of a sudden you can't focus on me anymore. Okay. As soon as you see it and you start to you'll feel that energy shift. And as soon as it starts to shift, that's when you're drifting, getting ready to go down into the drama triangle. That's when you need to shift, stop, challenge why you're feeling that way, and think of something, I would do either the switching thoughts, you can use a mantra, or you can actually let the feeling that you're starting to have come up and release. Identify, there's only five major emotions. Identify what emotion you're feeling, and then let that kind of bubble up. Takes about 90 seconds for it, and then let it release. And then you won't get into that loop. And you'll be able, once you're in the loop and you're pissed off, too late. In that case, drink some water, go for a little walk, get out of the situation that's stimulating it, let yourself cool down, and learn from it. Be open, curious, and want to grow. Curious, what happened there? Listen, I used to do this. So I basically was a critical care physician. I also was a cardiac anesthesiologist. I was the chairman of my department. And bottom line, when something would happen, they would call me when someone was in trouble, and I would go into the room and save the day. But that wasn't the important part. The important part is I would grab the anesthesiologist or the nurse anesthetist or the surgeon, and after the case, I'd go and sit in my office and we go over what happened or what didn't happen. Because what you want to do is you want to learn from those situations. You can't learn from them when you're in them. If you're in the if you look at basically you're in the rapids, and the rocks in the rapids are all these negative thoughts that we have, this negative stored energy. When you're in the rapids, you're just fighting to keep yourself from getting caught in the eddy and drowning. You need to get out of the rapids and be able to observe it. And the best way to do that is go to the mental gym every day. So as soon as you start feeling that energy shift, so right now you're in a good spot, right? You're listening to me, we're having a great conversation, you're learning, you feel very calm. Soon as you feel, and you know it because you're telling me you let it go all the way, and you get into those thoughts and then basically your emotions, and then you're feeling the physical things as a response. That means you're letting that loop gather energy, and it's just getting you completely off kilter. Soon as that happens, just like this is what I tell moms and dads when they're reading to their kids. You're on the bedside, and your 4-year-old is reading and they're doing a pretty good job, and then they make a mistake. As soon as they make a mistake, you don't go, no, you're doing great, keep going. As soon as they make a mistake, you give them a hug and say, great job, and you put them to sleep. Because as soon as they make a mistake, they start to get frustrated, and that's the same thing going on. Then they think, oh, I'm not that good, I'm stupid, and then they get emotional about it. And as soon as that loop happens, this part goes brain dead. This goes away. So it's really important. Does that make sense?
Absolutely,
Yes.
yes.
So start there and just do it. And I'd love for you to come kind of work on it maybe for the next month, and maybe come back on next month and tell me how it's working for you.
I will be here.
All right. Sounds great, buddy. Thanks, man.
Great.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Who else we got?
All right. Next up, we have David. David, there you are.
Hey, David.
Dr. A, how are you?
I am fantastic. It's interesting. I've got more guys coming on today. I love it. I love it. Because
Must be
guys, we're
inclusion.
so tough. We're usually so tough. We have nothing's going on with us, right?
It must have been the inclusion of the word gym in the promo of this week.
I
Mental
love
gym.
it.
I wanted to just kind of pick your brain a little bit about the modality of meditation and mindfulness meditation or mindfulness-based stress reduction as a modality for the practices that you were talking about.
Yeah. No, I listen anytime. So meditation really is understanding that you're not okay, right? Because you're actually shifting on something, and then you create a before and after in your mind where you sense that. And the more you can regulate and get your body back into coherence. So we have three types of coherences. We have physiologic uh, coherence, we have emotional coherence, and we have cognitive coherence. And when those are in sync, everything runs great. And it doesn't matter where you get out of sync, because I mean, a great example is, let's just say you have an incredible athlete, right? That's in the Olympics. And I'll give you an example. Happened 3 or 4 Olympics ago. I can't remember his name, but he was a high hurdler. Oh, no, it was a female actually. She was a high hurdler, and she was incredible. And all year getting ready for the Olympics, she kept getting better and better and better, and she was going faster and faster. So she's in the Olympics, and she's in one of the races, the 440 or something, And she's actually, the announcers are saying, oh my God, she's going faster than she's ever gone in her life. She's ahead by the sixth hurdle. Apparently, she was, I mean, so far ahead. It was, and the next hurdle, she said, she thought mentally to herself, wow, I really need to focus on making sure I get my leg up because it seems like those hurdles are coming faster than I thought. As soon as she had that thought, boom, she hit the next one was down, right? So in here, we can affect our whole body and even at the highest level. So daily, when we meditate, we are, and even if you notice while you're meditating that you're basically still hearing the chatter, that's okay, but you're actually hearing the chatter. See, most of the time, with the chatter, the voice in our head is running our life, and we're not separating ourselves. We're not becoming an observer. So, meditation is a beautiful way to start to recognize that we have a voice in our head, and then that the voice in our head is not us, it's thoughts. And then the same thing when we're talking to Larry, he's feeling actually the physiologic effects of the emotions, so he's so buried in it, he's feeling three levels down. So in everything we do, the idea of stop, challenge, and choose, of using the techniques, using the mantra, using the switching thoughts, and of course using the witness consciousness, is to get ourselves removed and be able to see that our thoughts are not us, our feelings are not us, and certainly, this picture on my wall isn't me, right? We obviously know that. We know in consciousness that if I look outside of me, like, if I look at, this water, I know that that's not me, right? We need to get to the point where we know our thoughts aren't us either. We can have thoughts. We can have auditory and we can have visual. Like, right now, if I asked you right now to tell me what's in your refrigerator, right? You would create a mental picture. You wouldn't be able to itemize it. You would create a picture, right? You'd look right now, and I'm doing the same. I'm thinking, what's in my, okay, so I have coconut milk, I have mushrooms, and I'm actually visualizing. So knowing the interesting thing, that's a thought, that's a visual thought I'm having, which is not me. If I looked at the refrigerator, if I'm looking in the refrigerator, I'm looking at consciousness from a physical level. If I'm basically looking at it in a mental picture, I'm creating a thought, but that thought isn't me. So when you ask about meditation, a lot of people have trouble meditating. They can't get the thoughts out of there. Well, that's a good start. Understand, you're not going to be perfect. The mental gym is, you don't go in and I've been moving, so I haven't had access to my weights for a couple of weeks now, and I've just been moving boxes and doing things to stay active. But basically, if you don't do it daily, you lose it. You'll go back to all your old behaviors. That's why the prescription for life, my new book, because if in that year you're just taking that shot and you're relying on something outside of you, the shot to lose weight, you're in big trouble. Because if you're not starting to do the habits that are necessary to create long-term, if you're not starting to learn how to eat healthy, if you're not learning how to exercise better, if you're not learning how to sleep, you're not learning how to stress, at the end of a year, those drugs stop working and you got to stay on them or you gain your weight back and you can't come off them unless you've worked during that year on the things. The same thing is what meditation is. Meditation is a way of creating a separation so that now your thoughts are here versus in here. Does that make sense?
Oh, perfect sense. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's what you want to, that's how you want to wield it, David. You want, I've used more, it's called glimpse practices where I'll just take a moment and I'll look out at something like there's a big column. I'm looking at that column. And then I'll ask myself, okay, who's the observer that's looking at that column? Okay. My eyes are seeing the column. That's the visual. The visual is going into my brain. And that association is lighting up and showing you that that's in my brain isn't real, right? It's just like a television. Think of your mind as being a television screen. Let's say you're watching Kansas City play football, right, next weekend. You're watching a picture that's digitally programmed onto your TV. then it comes into your brain through your eyes, through your perception, comes in, it's associated, but it's not real. It's a thought, it's a visual pattern that's being created. The same thing when you meditate is you start thinking, okay, I'm hearing it's creeping back in, right? I had this thought, whatever it is, and it started to creep back in. Recognize it and say, okay, and then pick one of the three exercises to get you back so that you get rid of the thought. Or if it's important and you're sensing it, sense why I'm feeling that way, and then allow it to basically just totally relax into it and allow it to be. Don't try to change it. Stop trying to change reality because reality is reality. What we need to do is adjust to reality so that we become psychologically flexible enough so that when you go to sleep at night and you've done the right things, if you don't spend the hour in a ritual and you go to sleep and the last thing you've done just as you close your eyes is look at this, you're in trouble because you're going against your biological programming. You're not looking at your circadian rhythm. We are organisms that have certain tendencies, and we happen to be gifted and cursed with the prefrontal cortex. We get the emotional part like any animal. Listen, my Labrador Retriever, I could be gone all day, and all he had was love and pure loyalty, and he wouldn't be pissed at me. He would be wagging his tail and just, licking you and just happy as can be, even if you were gone all day. They don't have a prefrontal cortex like we do. We've got this incredible gift, but it's also our worst enemy.
I love it. Well, Dr. A, thank you for the forum. Thank you for all the contributions you made to the world and well-being in general. But thank you for your contribution there.
Awesome. I appreciate it, David. Thank you so much. Cool. All right. We got 9 minutes, Rach. We got time for probably one more.
All right. Next up, we have Melissa.
Hi, Melissa. You're muted. You're muted, so I can't hear you.
Okay, how are you?
I'm great.
Good. So, okay, July 1st of last year, I had a car accident and I suffered a concussion and some back stuff, back and neck disc popped out or whatever. Not popped out, you know what I mean? They got displaced or whatever. So anyway, and then I was involved in another car wreck August 18th. Okay. So due to that, like prior to that, my physical activity was on point. Honestly, 7 days a week, these aminos have been amazing. I was in the best physical, like, state that I had ever been in my life. And from then to now, one thing that I've been very conscious of is keeping my nutrition on point because physically, depending on the treatments that I'm getting and stuff, I just had some PRP treatment on my lower back and physical therapy, all those things. I've not been able to be fully consistent with my workouts like I used to be. It's been in and out, and I have to all the things, right? So here we are, 7 months later. When I saw my physician for my yearly and explained to him what happened, just my blood work and stuff, and I explained to him what happened, he told me, he was like, okay, you've made big changes in the past 3 years. However, right now, due to the things that you've been through, you're in a chronic state of pain. Your cortisol levels could go back up, but basically everything that you've reversed, you could see it start to come back in the next 6 months to a year. So my question is, I refuse to let all this go down the drain. One, I've lost 62 pounds without maybe have kept it off and physically just so much better and want to continue to grow in that. We'll continue to grow in that. What can I do to safeguard that?
Well,
Like,
two things come to mind. I got this covered. I got you. You ready?
Yes.
2 things. Stay the heck out of cars first. Tongue in cheek, tongue in cheek. The second is don't, and this is not me being counter, listen to your doctor as far as medications or medical advice. Listen to your own self, what I just heard in terms of your physical health, right? So you're doing okay. So the bottom line is you've had some setbacks, chronic pain, The best thing you can do for chronic pain is, of course, within reason, is work on increasing your activity level. No question about it. The worst thing you can do is let it splint you. So you're dead on. You want to continue, obviously do it so you're not creating more pain, but your ability to maintain your muscle mass, your flexibility, your strength, are all critical for your long term, especially if you've got, some, now you've created some somatic dysfunction where, some of your skeletal parts aren't quite the same. But it's really important to do that and to do both passive and dynamic stretching. So dynamic stretching means you do something like, calisthenics or something before you start working out. And then afterwards, you do passive stretching, which basically is what, traditionally, where you stretch and so I talk about that in the new book as well. But that's very helpful. Second of all, your nutrition is dead on. Make sure you're eating nothing that can stimulate insulin, because insulin basically directly with the glucose going up directly creates inflammation. So you want to minimize your inflammation. You want to maximize your strength and flexibility. I love that you're going to PT to make sure they're working on balancing, to make sure your extensor and flexor groups are working right. And then keep that beautiful attitude you got right up here, Melissa, because you're in charge. And actually, when you were telling me what your doctor was saying, it just kind of made me think of Debbie Downer on Saturday Night Live, right? Because the bottom line is you have the ability, there's people who have a lot worse injury than you that have made complete recoveries and or at least gotten themselves back so they're functioning. I mean, when I go skiing and I see people that are like double amputees that are, they're not saying, "Oh no, you'll never ski again." They're out there with a chair with a ski on it, and they're skiing. So you are the most powerful, dominant force in your life. Your physical and mental health determine everything. Your doctor is there to provide reactive to the things that are wrong with you. And I'm not going to in any way, because I'm not your doctor and I don't know what the facts are of your physical injuries, but I can tell you your mental health is your business and everything you're saying. So make sure you get the new book, because I go into a lot more detail on the things you can do as far as that and on the nutritional parts. But yeah, the more, and by the way, keeping your weight off, staying out of metabolic insulin resistance is key. Making sure you're sleeping well, making sure if you're having trouble sleeping, that you're using only natural supplements. Don't use anything else, because of a tendency sometimes for doctors will put their patients, that are having pain because they can't sleep well. Don't take sleeping aids. Just stay natural is what I'm saying, as much you can.
Melatonin, magnesium.
Magnesium's a good one. Theanine's a good one. I mean, I don't give medical advice, but you can go and there's and a small amount. Melatonin, I'd rather have you take magnesium simply because it's relaxing. It's a natural element. Just use it within reason. Use it with the directions. But yeah, those are great. And the other thing is really go in and actually in the new book I talk about your evening routine, or you can go back to the Habits Health. Get a routine an hour before so you get a good night's sleep. Inflammation, basically sleeping, getting into a deep sleep. And I talk about in the new book that basically, if you think about it, we're just found this out. More and more of the country is under cognitive decline. More people are getting Alzheimer's. And what we're finding out now is that every night when you go to sleep and you get in deep restorative sleep, not REM sleep, but deep sleep, your brain actually shrinks, and it's like in a city where they have the street washer. Your CSF fluid goes in and bathes your brain, around your brain, and takes out all the amyloids and all the tau products, and it cleans and it kind of street washes your brain and gets rid of all the breakdown products, which keeps us healthy. When you don't sleep well, that doesn't happen. And so we're finding more and more. There's just so many things we're learning, how important sleep is, how important proper nutrition is, getting your insulin in control. And we're finding more and more. We don't measure insulin, we measure glucose when you go to the doctor. And we're finding that about 75% of Americans that have insulin resistance, they already have higher than normal insulin because of the processed food and the crap we're eating, the lack of good sleep, inflammation, eating processed food and they're not getting natural GLP-1 release from their gut because the food is absorbed proximally. So all these things together add up. So do all the natural things. And you know what? In a year, go in and show your doctor that no, you're not getting worse, you're getting better. And by the way, same thing with cortisol. When you see your cortisol level is supposed to naturally come up around 4 in the morning as you get ready for your day, it gets you ready for your day and it raises your blood sugar a little bit. If you're not sleeping well, your cortisol raises later in the day and then it becomes dysfunctional for you. So all the things you're doing, keep doing them. Make sure you do it within reason. Don't, obviously the areas that you injured, and you've only been 7 months. It takes about a year for most chronic pain to go away from an injury. It takes about a year. So you're not even there yet. So let's don't give up hope and start thinking we're, on our way down, and let's go do what you do best, okay?
He told me that, and I was like, I bet not.
I love it. I'm not arguing with your doctor. I'm just saying there's a better way.
Yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
All right. Thank you, guys. All right. Well, we're at 1 o'clock. It's time. This was really great. And it was great hearing from guys as well as girls. Again, this forum is designed for anyone that's interested in improving their consciousness and taking control. So I highly encourage, get to the mental gym today. Start off slow. I'm not saying you should be doing it all day long. Find those moments, find moments for yourself. And when you feel that icky sauce coming on, stop, challenge, and start taking control, because all of us have the ability to take control of our health, our well-being, and our lives. So God bless you guys. Bye.